a minority small business owner and a woman small business owner. So she is a Black woman owning her own business, which is has to put her in a very small percentage of small business owners in the country and the world. And I'm really excited to speak with her on this topic today. She is the founder of HR Moms, LLC, which, as far as I understand, is a way to bring HR to small businesses and to be able to maximize the talent that's out there that may also be balancing the kind of things we're talking about today of parenting and also managing a work life. One other thing I want to say about Corinne before I let her finish the introduction of herself is I think we both see a commonality between running a business and leading and working with people and also parenting. And I think there's a lot of interplay between how you grow as a parent or as a small business owner. And I just see all these lessons in parenting that really actually are lessons in leadership and business that can actually work back and forth. So I think it's wonderful to have more women stepping up into leadership, because for very long, for most of the time, women have been the ones leading our families and managing all these big decisions. And men, even me, at lots of points in our family, have taken a backseat and sort of let my wife lead. So this idea of having an interplay between business ownership and knowledge and parenting is really exciting to me. So welcome, Corinne.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. So yes, I am the owner of HR Mom. It stands for Human Resources Managers on the Move. And what we do is we provide small businesses with HR related functions. So we do everything from talent management, process improvement, business coaching, training and development. And we really take best practices that happen in big business and scale them down to work with small businesses, particularly mom and pop shop operations, and really show them how they can take some of these best practices and implement it in their small businesses to make them much more successful and sustainable and compatible, be able to compete as a mid-size or large-size business in their industries.
That's great. And so many businesses need that nowadays, and especially as people are fishing around trying to find the information, to be able to make the connections that you make between the people who can deliver those services and the people that desperately need it. It's a great place to be. And I think you're in so many of those intersections. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, and
So,
one of the things you hit on in introduction in terms of the parenting role and how it relates to business and operations, I was very strategic in naming HR Mom because I wanted to give that understanding to businesses that there is a component of parenting that needs to happen in terms of hand-holding and training and conversations and development that we need to give to our businesses as well as if we were parenting them, right? So, you know, we're doing a lot of coaching, we're doing a lot of implementation of process, we're doing a lot of teaching, a lot of training, and it really reflects the parenting relationship, right? We're using lots of patience, lots of data, lots of conversation. So it's really allowing us to sort of mimic that parent relationship. So that's what HR Mom came from as well. And I happen to also be a mother. I have two daughters, and they are learning and watching and developing their own professionalism and their own experience as a professional and what they want to be when they grow up. So they're actually taking all of these leadership skills, and I'm still parenting as I'm working, right? I'm parenting as I am also developing my business.
that's awesome. And the interplay and for them to be able to see and witness both happening at the same time, and you juggling all the things that you're juggling, it only benefits them in the long run. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So the parents that you're dealing with, or the business owners that are parents, or the people trying to help these businesses, are you finding that they're being interrupted by the pandemic and the social distancing and the challenges right now? What kind of things are they struggling with?
So there are lots of work-life balance concerns that are happening right now. And I think part of it is coming from obviously the pandemic, with not having the resource and flexibility of schooling and having children return to school in person. So I think that's putting a lot on the parents and their ability to be productive at work or even to complete work and function. So, you know, you have this idea where you have to homeschool, but you also need to work and get work completed. And that's something that we never really had to think about when you have a child that's going to school in person. And the other piece is I'm finding it also an issue as it relates to talent acquisition and recruitment, right? As individuals are looking for work right now, being able to have those candid conversations with employers that talk about that there is a challenge in childcare that I have right now. So being able to report to work and being able to perform work. So I was just on an interview yesterday. I was hiring for a client, and the young lady was talking about her child's school, and they were moving to a hybrid model and how that would work in her scheduling. And it was a part-time role of 25 hours a week. But just being able to have those conversations as early on in the interview process and in the current management of an employee is, you know, the pandemic is really impacting that and is really making us think intentionally about how we are able to make work happen while we're still parenting. Even as simple as going through a resource list. What do I need to work at home safely and still parent safely, and realizing that there's infrastructure that I need at home. And one of the resources around technology, how do I manage the use of technology? I know one of the things that's been helpful for me as I've made this pivot is I do have a 15-year-old daughter. So moving to this technology, I'm constantly, hey, come in here and show me how I can move this. Or you know, she's doing virtual schooling and she's like amazing. Her teachers are saying, you know, we're getting videos from her, and I have a green screen, I have a ring light, I'm all set up to produce. But she's like on it because she has that. So in some ways, it's been a partnership, right? I've been leveraging that, like, okay, she's home and she can help me, and you know, I'm also guiding and helping her. And we're seeing that balance in the workplace. I mean, we've seen tons of interviews where we have parents that are getting walked in on, and people are understanding of that. You know, you're in a business meeting, we understand that now. This is, you know, our life and how we're living. Um, so I definitely think the pandemic is impacting that, but it's an enormous opportunity, I think, that's also happening as well.
Yeah, I think we both see it that way. I think there are, obviously we're two people in different industries that are wading into trying to help parents and employees, you know, struggling with this, but also the opportunity is not, it is easy to get lost. And I find I'm often pointing that out to people. I get the impression you are too,
Yeah.
especially in what you described of like having those conversations early on in an employment contracting process, so that it's not, historically women coming into the workplace and then having to sort of sneak in their parenting issues or their maternity issues or whatever. But now we get to have that conversation up front. And as difficult as that is, and as unfamiliar as we are, it's a benefit, because then you have a stronger partnership starting off.
Yeah. And I think one of the things for me is that this is not, it's not new to be able to have those conversations. I remember reading our forever First Lady, Michelle Obama's book on Becoming. And there was a section in there where she was talking about, you know, her interview process as a young mother and as a young professional. And you know, having those conversations, authentic conversations to say, hey, this is what you're getting. I have a child at home. I have a family, and I am balancing this work within that structure, and being able to have employers have a response for that. Whether it's accommodating or not. And obviously, I work in the world of HR, so also I know a lot about what some of the federal requirements are and what are the regulations and the laws around that. But just being able to have those conversations to say, this is what you're getting, and here's what I'm bringing to the table, and being confident enough to articulate that. So for me, those conversations are not new, and I've had a lot of those conversations as a parent, as a woman in the workplace, and have encouraged candidates and potential hirees and employees to have those conversations and what that looks like and impact. So I think that that's becoming part of the conversation now, and now it's going to become part of the culture.
Right. And women and your clients are having to do this and often educate employers for the first time. What else are you suggesting to people, or what else are people finding as a possible response to these challenges of working from home and managing virtual learning, or managing relatives' health crisis, all the things that we're juggling right now? What else have you come across that people, maybe our listeners, could benefit from?
So I think part of it is also just that awareness. I think for the first time, we're actually being uh, forced to see this impact, right? So there are a lot of working fathers that are also experiencing, wow, this is what it means to manage the home and also have to work and also have small children, or teenagers or college age children.
Mhm.
And I think having that level of empathy, I think we're seeing a lot now, that level of empathy being raised, right? So there are employers understanding that, I don't have the luxury now of just, focusing on work from 8 to 5. I also now have to focus on, my children and schooling and their well-being, and my elderly parents or family members I have to care for it. So it's it within the context of still working. So I think now we're really being forced to kind of slow down and look at that and really stretch our empathy skills to say, how can we be more flexible, and encouraging those conversations to happen. Like, this is a lot.
Mhm.
This is basic Maslow hierarchy of needs being
Mhm.
challenged, right? So
Right.
we cannot be productive and reach that self actualization when we have our basic safety and security at risk. Oh, and then you add on top of that, you mentioned, you see, and we've talked about how the women of color and being a person of color, that experience. So not only am I being challenged right now with the pandemic and safety, I also have these racial issues and insecurities that's happening. So now there's a question of safety. There's a question of, do I have enough food? So now, being in a situation where we're now in a pandemic and now it's a health risk, we're back to ground zero, a basic survival mode, right? And I think everyone's level of awareness is being raised. And that's happening in the workplace. It's happening in the interview process. It's happening in the onboarding process. And so I think being able to have those authentic conversations and be able to work through
Mhm.
what works and what hasn't worked,
Mhm.
we're getting the opportunity to do that during this pandemic.
That's a great insight, and here we are. People that watch this video later aren't going to be aware that we're only days after the first announcements out of Louisville that
Mhm.
shook the nation in terms of the lack of charges that were being brought
Yeah,
on the murder of Breonna
Breonna
Taylor.
Taylor,
And
absolutely.
so I've heard from so many people, but especially Black women in this last week, who could no longer sort of go to work with the mask on that they
Yeah.
were previously used to wearing, and just make sure that everyone thought they were okay, because they were so far from okay after this news. Is there anything that you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think, and is not just the recent Breonna Taylor um, um, this decision, but it's also the constant history, right? And having to relive those experiences and that trauma in the workplace. In May, it was the George Floyd, and I happen to be located in Philadelphia, and I was in one of the regions that was the rioting and it really impacted severely by that response as well. And I think being able to now have to be productive in the workplace or have to be responsive, it is tiring, it is taxing, it is draining. Our bodies are responding physically when you're constantly seeing these images and you're constantly getting these messages that reinforce I might not be important, or I'm not safe, or I'm not validated, I'm not heard, I'm not seen. That weighs on a body. it weighs on a mind, it weighs on a person, and obviously that reflects in our interaction. So now you're in the workplace and you have individuals that are less likely to engage, less likely to be responsive to their counter to their coworkers, and are even just frustrated and angry because they don't know what to do with all of those emotions and responses. And then if you're in an environment where you're not sure if it's safe to even have those conversations,
Mhm.
I'm getting ready to roll out some research where I'm looking at the employees' response to racial and race conversations in the workplace in organizations that have or have not made statements about diversity, equity, and inclusion issues and
Mhm.
concerns. So, how does that impact one's ability to interact with their colleagues, and what
Mhm.
does that mean for their ability to be productive? And I think as a country, not only are we days away from that verdict, but we're one day out from our first presidential debate that happened last night, and it
Mhm.
was just it's scary to watch, right? It's scary to be a part of, but it's also an opportunity to participate and stand up and be able to start those conversations and regain some strength and really be able to move the needle forward a little bit at a time.
Yes, and each of us, in terms of the last piece about the debate, each of us getting up from the next blow of the economy or racial injustice or a finding or a debate or statements that are just beyond what we can take,
Mhm.
but being able to stand up and say, I'm not going to be scared away from this process. I'm still going to be
Absolutely.
active myself on behalf of my kids, on behalf of my employees, and get out and do something and vote and take
Get
action.
up,
But it's
vote,
it
do something.
seems so
Absolutely.
utterly calculated to suppress energy and activity, and like you said, it weighs on everyone's body, but first and foremost on people of color and especially Black women, following what's going on with Breonna Taylor, but not to mention George Floyd and all the
Oh,
Eric
countless
Garners, et
others,
cetera, that happened
absolutely.
before.
And it weighs on you, but it also fuels the fire. I look at someone like myself, and um, you know, I'm first generation college student. When I obtain my doctorate degree, I'll be the first in my family to obtain that level of academic success, right? We're talking 400 relatives.
Mhm.
But to be able to say, this has to be done because you have to see it, right? You have to be a part of it. I have to find the strength to push to that place so that my daughters can see it, my daughters' daughters can see it, that my extended cousins can see that any event or even in the face of adversity, you still have the opportunity to progress. And the number of systems that I've had to go through, even with all my accolades as a faculty member, as a person of color, as a woman, as a someone that does research and is very experienced in my field and discipline, I'm still having to go through issues around systemic racism. I'm still having to advocate. I'm still having to find the energy to stand up and be present. But everybody doesn't have that fight. Everybody doesn't. After a while, like you said, it wears, it tears, and eventually you do have folks that may withdraw and give up in the workplace. And we're seeing it in the workplace.
Mhm.
They're resigning, they're leaving. They are moving on to employers that are more conscious, or moving on to employers that have a corporate social responsibility and have been adamant about what they want.
Mhm.
They want to work for individuals that support their beliefs and believe in them, or individuals who look like them. And we're
Mhm.
finding that as persons of color become more experienced and um, more educated, that they're picking to choose to work for employers that support.
Mhm.
Recently, I just put up a post, and you may have seen this on my LinkedIn, where it was a sort of a trend in response to the CEO of Wells Fargo saying that there was a limited talent of Black individuals.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is a recruitment HR related issue. You're not even using the tools that are available to you to find the qualified people. I wrote, you know, with some sarcasm, I said, well, you have no problem finding us for a student loan payment, right? You can use the same database. You
Right.
can use the same database.
It's not a lack of data.
Where are these folks graduating from and they owe student loans? You can find us for a payment, but you can't find us for an open position.
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense to me. And you have access to data. You have access to our whereabouts and how we think and our decision. You use it for sales and marketing, but you can't find us for positions. That's something. There's something there, and I think that that's where we are as a workforce needing to revisit. You
Yeah.
know what is happening as it relates to the Black professional experience.
So what's the saying, Corinne, in HR, that people don't quit the job, they quit the manager?
They quit the manager. Absolutely. It's not necessarily the work and the role. It's the system. It's the organizational culture. It's the manager. It's the supervisor. So now that we're becoming more informed, we can become more intentional about our behaviors, right?
Mhm.
It's part of the reason why I started HR Mom. I realized I probably won't ever go to work for anyone else again. This idea of being able to empower a small business with knowledge and being able to
Mhm.
and share that in a way where I'm not stifled by one's culture. I can create my own culture. There is a culture of educated Black talent. There is a culture of professionalism in Black businesses. Many of my clients are about 3 to 5 years old, and for the very first time, are hiring talent and really transitioning from that mom and pop operation.
Mhm.
So I'm getting to teach them that, you know, the perception of a Black owned business is, you know, there's this idea that there's less quality.
Mhm.
That's not the case with my clients. My clients are very much well aware of how they need to be intentional about their customer service and their product. And in some cases, they're being more more passionate, and because they are battling against
Mhm.
that particular perception.
Right.
Um, so you know I'm seeing in my work the opportunity to push into switching that paradigm. You know, there are Black professional businesses, they are paying their taxes, they are in they you know they are established with their LLCs, they are hiring talent. You know, it just not, you know, you start off with family owned, but you know everybody that works for them is not their aunt, their uncle, their cousin.
Mhm.
They, you know,
Mhm.
they are actually building in a process in a system and working within an industry that's not necessarily set up for them to do that, right?
And probably hiring Black talent, and we need more ways to identify besides Wells Fargo's, inability to use their database to find that talent.
Yep.
I'm going to introduce you. We talked before this about a couple of connections I'm going to make, but I'm also going to introduce you to a friend who decided to spend a ton of energy in the direction of identifying Black designer talent.
Oh, wow.
And so I would love to connect you with her.
Oh, absolutely.
She's in Minnesota. Her name's Heatherleen Wynn, and we'll definitely tag her and we'll talk. Before we end, I wanted to pivot a little bit, and I realize I'm kind of like channeling your energy because you're kind of getting into a direction, but I'd love
Yep.
to hear for a minute about the project you just took part in, the Love Letters to My Girls
Yeah. Yeah.
project. If you could explain that or share how you got involved in that.
Yeah. So I have a professional colleague, Dr. Sarita Witherspoon, who this was her initiative, and I sort of, as soon as she reached out to me and shared, it just made sense in all of who I am and what I do to support this project. So, Love Letters to Our Girls is a book that is a resource for women and girls, Black women and girls, in which we had over 100 authors write letters to women and girls around their experiences and what it means for them. And this book is an opportunity to give a space for our experiences and our voice. I wrote the Be Bold letter. I am all about using your voice and your presence as a Black woman, as a woman of color. My daughters are, they know that, their voice is valid, they have a place, and that they are to advocate for themselves as such at all times. So this idea of being bold, being able to be present, to use your voice and not let anyone suppress that, is a superpower. So this book, it'll be coming out in November. It's up now. You can order it, pre-order. I was one of the contributing authors and was really excited to join each and every one of these stories. I haven't read the book in its full entirety. Some of the women I know personally, and some I'm learning and meeting for the first time, and just the different experiences that they have, whether it be as a business owner, as a mother, as a friend, as a sister, as a doctor, whatever, these experiences all make sense, and that you can find some way to relate. And it's meant to be a resource of empowerment resources for women and girls around the world. There are authors from all over the world, all different walks of life, all different experiences. I can't wait to read the book. I enjoyed writing my letter, and I'm just so excited about that opportunity and why it's so important for women to actually have that resource and have that. I was adamant about actually having a book. This whole thing about um, virtual or ebooks. No shade, that's a term we use. No shade to the ebook. However, there's something about touching the pages. And for me, it's historical. This idea that there was a time where the world didn't want a person like me and who looked like me to read, to have access to read, to have access to education, to have access to literature and knowledge. And there's something about the words being written, that they're there historically, and that they are able to be referenced. So there's something about having it in a book, um, which made sense to me. And I have a heart and a passion for Black women. I have a heart and a passion for Black girls. So it means everything to me to be able to share that experience and find myself being able to give insight to others.
That's fantastic. What a great project to be a part of. And there's so many parts of that that resonate for me. I don't know. We haven't even used the word superpowers, but that's near and dear to my heart. But the term that you used, but the idea that African Americans were never given, were limited from reading and writing was literally, I believe, a way to limit telling the stories and sharing the stories. So having something physical in print and being able to share your stories. But the part that resonates for me the most is in a time where we've already discussed so many of the destructive forces going on in the world, to add something creative and positive and project forward and tell stories like that. The timing just seems perfect for this project, and I can't wait to read the book myself.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Well, Corinne, thanks so much for being on. I'm really excited to make these connections and to share what you've shared with our audience. And I'd love to talk again.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime. Thank you, Robert, so much. And I look forward to meeting some individuals you would like to introduce me to in any way that I can be of support to this conversation around parenting and professionals and Black professionals in the workplace. I absolutely will love to engage.
This is great.